Hello. I know I'm not exactly out on a trail like I usually am, but weather hasn't really been permitting for that sort of thing. It's like -5 degrees outside right now. But it's also snowing, and 11 o'clock at night. I've got about 1 hour left of being 30 years old. Tomorrow is my birthday, but by the time this video comes out, it'll probably be a week of me being 31 years old, and I'm sure it'll be a riveting time. In the last episode of the show, the group had officially left Valley Dar. They had traveled out into the wilderness, making their way, luckily without getting lost. But along the way, they ran into both a random encounter, a group of goblins that had been traveling across the plains there outside of their home there, the keep of Kagrummar, and the party had managed to outrun them and regroup and head back out, continuing their journey after a rest. So on the second day of their travels, they had traveled again and ran into another encounter, of course, this one being much more dangerous, that being a Hydra. But luckily, through a nice roll of a reaction roll here, the party were able to get around this fight entirely, as the Hydra appeared to be pretty well uninterested in them and their presence. After that, we finally arrive at the outskirts of the keep of Kagrummar, as we've called it, the giant-sized dungeon which was inhabited by goblins and ogres. And at this point in time, we detailed the dungeon just a bit, giving ourselves a structure, some sort of a framework to work with here. But we didn't really outline what's going on the actual insides as of right now, in a more specific sense. So, with that in mind, I think it's time we just jump right into this episode, and we start talking about what this dungeon delve is going to be like and what's going on inside of this here dungeon. So, come with me. All right, welcome back to the basement. I want to jump right into things. We have only a couple things that I got to go over real quick before we jump into it. First and foremost, our friend Tamron, having survived his first episode, has officially gained himself a miniature, something from the 3.5 days. I'm pretty sure this was a sorcerer. It says on the bottom, Amaril, or Aramil. I can read, it's okay. An adventurer, if you can imagine that. But I think that'll be fun enough for Tamron. Our party are just outside of the keep of Kagrummar. They, as last described, Kagrummar's keep has wooden palisades surrounding the whole place. It's 2 stories with some towers poking off of it. The whole place seems to be in pretty alright condition, but as a place that's survived hundreds of years, it's fallen apart a little bit. Nothing terrible, but we do know that this structure is inhabited by the goblins and some ogres. What else lives in there is hard to tell, and I'm sure we're going to find out soon enough. But our party are just outside, in the hills outside of this place, looking down at Kagrummar. It appears to be about midday, if not a little past there, and I think we need to start talking about the party moving into this place. Now, since this place seems to be a base of operations, or a lair of sorts, for the goblins and the ogres, it makes sense that this place might have patrols. Now, when the party ran into that random encounter of goblins, we could consider that being a patrol, but considering they were miles away from the place, I think that that wouldn't really work defensively for them. So I want to at least roll right now to see if there's a chance of any sort of patrol, and then we can sort of go from there on our way to entering this place. So let's take a look at the table and roll some dice. Okay, welcome back to the table. Alright, so as I said before, Tamron the Ranger got his new mini, and we're joined also by Fennel the Cleric, Zion the Rogue, or Thief rather, my apologies, and the magic user, Bareen. So the party are standing just outside of the lair. I'd say that they're a decent distance away, a few hundred feet away from this place out here. The keep of Kagrummar has a couple towers. It's not a totally decrepit place, but, you know, with the palisades and everything around that are falling down, the party are in the distance looking down on them. So, here's my question. If the goblins and ogres that call this place home are diurnal, I think there's a good chance that they might not even have guards out at this point. But I could also see the argument that they would. Because they're normally accustomed to nighttime, they might have extra guards in the day. You get it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to roll on our Oracle to see the D6 Oracle from YumDM. And we'll see if they're actually on guard or not and on the lookout. So as per the few episodes before this, the D6 Oracle operates quickly. 1 through 3 is yes, 4 through 6 is no, and there's various degrees of yes and no based on that, like yes and yes but, and vice versa for the no's. So let's go ahead and roll that real quick. Are there guards currently on duty? 6. So that would be no, but. Okay, so no, there are not guards on duty, but I think it makes sense to say that this place is locked up. Even though there's no guards, this is an old keep, so the place will be locked up pretty tight. So we can at least say that the gate is down in the entrance and there's a couple of traps potentially rigged to go inside. Okay, I can live with that. So considering that, I think it's time we start just moving on in. I think before we truly move into this place, it's also a good idea to consider what the game plan for the characters are. They want to get revenge on the goblins, they want to get to the bottom of this and get rid of the goblin problem. They heard of ogres, but they don't really have too much beef with the ogres, apart from just the usual ogre beef of ogres being awful. So, in that case, I think the party are just going to go in here, try to root this problem out, get to the bottom of it, and clear the place. Obviously, they're not going to stay in here forever. When things look bad, we're going to retreat back to town. So let's get dungeonous. Okay, so our party are going to be traveling up to the place. They're not going to be doing anything to be super duper sneaky about it, so they're probably just going to walk right up to the front. So as far as the outside of this place goes, I'm going to quickly draw up a rough sketch in my mind of what we got, as well as the map that I have available, which I'll show you that once we get to actually mapped phase. So wait 1 second. All right, see, 1 second. Because I described in the last episode the palisade around this place, the wooden wall being kind of deteriorated, I drew the main gate out front. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to roll a d4 to see how many weak spots there are in the wall. Or, you know what, I'll be generous to the goblins. We'll roll a d3 and we'll see how many holes there are. 3. So 2 holes in the walls. I'm going to say there's probably a hole in the back and there will be a hole over here on the side. So what this actually means to the party is at least there's multiple ways in apart from just the gate. So considering this, it's not going to be super easy to get in, but so the party are going to start marching in, and I think the party are going to probably realize that the gate is either watched or rigged, so they're probably going to consider sneaking in through the back. Now, because this is a defensive fortification, it's not likely that they're going to have a bunch of ins and outs of this place. A keep's not really great if you've got 101 ways for an enemy to enter, so the party will try to sneak in through the back, and then they'll go around into the front. Now, because I'm going to consider the outer perimeter of the keep as its own area, let's go ahead and let's roll to see if we're going to treat it like a room. Let's see if there's anything interesting going on out here. So hold on again, 1 second. I'm going to prepare a book. I went ahead and grabbed our sandbox generator by Atelier Clandestine. And one of my favorite pages in here is the structure for dungeons. There's this nice little table that I kind of use as a rule of thumb here, where it says that overall the room setup, that they come in a few different varieties, right? A trapped room, an empty room, special room, or monsters. So let's go ahead and just roll a d6 and we'll see if there's anything going on out here, okay? So on a d6, we got a 1, so it's trapped out here. Okay, interesting. So considering that this is the outside, the traps that I think would be available might be stuff like pit traps. Just because I think that, you know, this kind of place is probably rigged in a simple way and it's all dirt out here, I think it makes sense that they dig out some holes in the ground around these weaker spots. So let's go ahead and have the party roll now to see if they can spot the trap. Since they're going to be moving slowly at this point and moving in extra slow, there's a chance that they'll be able to spot it. So let's quickly check that. Okay, so considering the rules for traps, the chances of triggering traps will be 2 in 6 that it'll go off for a room trap. I know treasure traps are usually a little bit more direct that it will occur, so I'll quickly suggest that the party have a 1 in 6 chance of spotting it. Now, considering that the party are infiltrating the lair of somebody else, I'm going to say that they probably will very cautiously be approaching, and I think that the fact that there were no guards afoot that they could see implies that the party would expect something's probably up. So I'm going to go ahead and roll quickly as they walk in here that they're going to slowly scour around the place and they'll be detecting traps as they do. So there's a 1 in 6 chance of them noticing because none of them are going to be detecting for, none of them have any special bonuses. Our rogue, on the other hand, thief, has a 1 in 10 chance at level 1 of detecting treasure traps, as far as I can tell for the rules. Everybody can detect the room traps, but the special trap checking for treasure is all Zion's. So let's roll real quick just to see if we spot anything. 2. So no, unfortunately they don't spot anything. Now on a 1 or 2, the pit trap will go off. So I'm going to go ahead and roll for each person who's going to be traveling through and potentially setting it off. Our marching order from here on out will probably be our friend Tamron in the front. Fennel will probably be in the back holding up the rear, and our magic user and our thief will be tagging along in the middle. So let's go ahead and roll 1 and 2 chance for each person to trigger it. So 3, first character's fine. Second, Zion's okay. Barine is all right, and Fennel, excellent. Cool. So everybody goes in. Nobody even knows there's a pit trap, and they all slink inside the walls. Now, again, because we're going to be moving extra slow here, moving in this very slow way, the party are going to be traveling defensively to the front of the building and coming up to the little murder hole situation up in the front. Real quickly, I just want to briefly go over how time is going to work in this, and then we can jump into full-on Dungeness play. So the way that time is going to work in this is it takes a turn in order to move the base movement speed. So in the case of heavier characters wearing armor like Fennel, it'll be only 20 feet at a time because they're encumbered, and that'll be 1 turn. Each turn is 10 minutes on the hour. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set up a d6 that we'll keep on the sidelines, and we'll just keep track of how turns are going to be operating. Now, luckily for us, we don't need torches outside, but a torch usually burns for 1 whole hour. The party are also going to have to rest every 6 individual turns in order to not become fatigued. So, because they just walked in through the entrance in that very slow way, they got their first spot right here. Now, usually when you're running this sort of thing in a dungeon, random encounters will happen each time we go 1 whole hour. So I might even keep an hour tracker alongside that just to keep an idea of how many hours have passed. But for right now, again, we're not using any torches. We don't have to worry about food or anything like that. And random encounters will come again every 6. So let's keep on moving. Considering how huge this place is, and we're going to be moving at 20 feet at a time, I'm going to be a little liberal here, and I'm just going to go ahead and say that it's 20 to get in here, and it'll probably take 3 to get around the whole building to the entrance. So we'll go ahead and bump this up to 4 as we've traveled those individual spots. Honestly, I get kind of flexible with the rules of tracking time for things like this. I usually say each room adds an individual turn, unless it's a gigantic room, which in the case of our dungeon being actually giant, we're probably going to run into that. But that's okay. So for right now, the party have just made it up to the entrance, and they can see that there is indeed a portcullis, which is down. Okay. So now we're going to have to figure out our way around this portcullis situation. I imagine that this front gate is on a rigged crank system, one that's operated inside in that first room where there's the defensive area. So considering the fact that the party aren't cool enough to have the A-OK on that, I think we're going to have to actually have them lift it up and try to get under. So let's quickly check our strength of our characters to see if we'll be able to do that. So looking at our characters, opening doors is going to be a 1 in 6 for Zion because she's got pretty weak strength. For our friend Fennel, who's kind of a beefcake, it's a 3 in 6 chance. And I'm pretty sure Fennel is probably the strongest out of everybody, but okay, cool. So Tamron also has a pretty good chance. So what I'm thinking right now is the party are going to spend a turn attempting to lift it, climb underneath, and then once the party are under, we'll be able to have the other part of the party lift it up so the other character can get on under. So let's go ahead and do this real quick. We'll see if Fennel's able to lift it. On a 3, the gate is lifted. Excellent. So the party are able to pretty well climb in without Fennel. And then on the other side, Tamron's going to try to hold it up so that Fennel can get under. Okay, a 3 again, kind of eerie. This is going too well right now. I'm expecting some danger to come soon, but everybody gets under the gate, and now they're officially on the other side. Excellent. Now we can actually start like real Dungeness play here. So I'm going to quickly draw up a little first section of this map, and we'll get grooving. All right. I lied a little bit. We're not going to go ahead and start drawing things just yet. I just wanted to give a real quick refresher on what we have going on here for our party moving around in this place. A little refresher of the structure of the dungeon, rather. So the entryway number one right here is where the party are going to be now coming into. This is the area the gates have just been lifted, so they're officially in area number one. Because we're in area number one, I think we're going to have to roll for our first die roll again on that table to see if there's anything going on in this chamber. Or I might just honestly DM's fiat and say they would have seen it unless it was trapped. So if it's anything other than a trap, we'll just, ignore it. But we'll be going to area number two, which is the big meeting area, and the rest of it may have shifted over time. There is that second floor that we described before, which again has stairs that go to both the upstairs to the towers, as well as downstairs to both the old barracks and to that entry area. And then last but not least, we have an underground section, which itself has an old treasury, which may or may not still be stocked, as well as, the old altar, the old prison, etc. So let's get back to the map and see what we can get. Alright, so let's see if we got off a little bit lucky here. I'm going to roll another d6 on this table, and we'll see if we got anything else. Again, I'm going to ignore it if it's monsters or special. We're basically just seeing if there's a trap. So on a 1 and 6, we're trapped. Good. Lucky us. I've gotten 3 a lot on this die. I'm going to keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and get that detail. Okay. So now that we're in this first section, I changed the 5-foot scale to a 10-foot scale just because the dungeon's going to get a little bit unwieldy. But for this first area we've got right here, the party are going to be led by Fennel and by Tamron in the front, and we're going to have Zion the thief and Barine the wizard. I keep wanting to say sorceress, the magic user in the back. We've just come up to the first doors, okay? So let's see if they're trapped or stuck or anything like that. I think because it's a main entrance, I might just DM's fiat and say that it's either locked or nothing. So I might augment the rules just a little bit on this, and I'm sure somebody knows in the comments if there's an easier rule system for this, but I kind of don't mind the idea that the rules here are a little bit, I don't want to say wonky, but I think what we'll do is we'll suggest that the doors have an even amount of chances of being, well, we'll say that it's a 1 in 4 chance of being stuck, a 1% chance, 1 through 4 on a d6 will be stuck, 5 will be locked, and 6 will be trapped. Trap doors will be implied to be locked as well, unless otherwise I state it. And what we'll do is we'll just suggest that on a 1 in 4, the door is going to be special. So because we got a 3, it's just an average, everyday, normal door. Because this place is a lair, and it's something that's used seemingly regularly, I imagine that the goblins wouldn't have their own front door locked. I'm sure there's a room to argue that, but that's why it would be sort of a special case. Okay, that in mind, the party now have an opportunity to skulk ahead with their thief, or to move in as a group. And I think that we're going to start off by first listening at the door to hear if there's anything there. But to know if there's anything there, let's see what the next room holds. So I'll draw that. All right, I drew this really quickly. Again, this place is giant, so every square is going to be 10 feet. And these little lines here denote doors, double doors, and single doors. So the party stand here at this moment, ready to jump into the next room. But again, we want to see what's on the other side. So let's roll again on our trusty little table, and we'll roll a d6 and see what we get. So a 1. So there's a trap inside this area. Okay. Interesting. Very good. Now, something I neglected to do outside because I don't think it made a lot of sense is right here on this percentage, it says that there's a percentage chance of there being some sort of treasure to be found here. So let's go ahead and roll percentiles to see if we find treasure in this opening chamber. 25% chance, we got 49, so unfortunately, no free treasure, just chilling in the entrance for the party to pick up. So because there's a quote-unquote trap, let's go ahead and figure out what kind of trap we might be grabbing from. So our trap table is pretty decently humongous, and there are some interesting, if not strange, traps in here. So just for the sake of us getting a good one, let's go ahead and roll it real quick and see what we get. And then I'll also roll on our empty room chart over here. Sorry, it's just kind of giant. I don't want to squish the minis. But we'll see what else is in this chamber. So I'll roll I don't know. We'll roll 3 percentiles to see what's in the room, and we'll roll 1 percentile for the trap. First percentile for the trap, we got a 57. 57 grants us a mist dispenser. So maybe we can suggest that this room itself has, I don't know, just a thick layer of fog in it from maybe smoke from some sort of cooking fire or something like that that's going on in here. So we can say that the trap, per se, is that the room is dense fog and limits visibility. Okay, interesting. So let's go ahead and roll 3 percentages for what's in this room for random stuff. We got a 98, 60, and 48. That's easy enough to remember. So 98, a wine cellar. Okay, so we can say there's a bunch of wine bottles tossed about. A 48, we got guano covered floor. So goblin filth, we'll just, I don't think we need bats. And then 60 was an oubliette. I don't think we can really have an oubliette in here. So let's just go ahead and roll a quick one. An 8, and that's an aquarium. Again, probably not possible. A 99 is a wooden bathtub. That feels a little bit more doable. So the floors are covered in filth. There's smoke clinging to the air as a cooking fire is going on, and we can see that the goblins have drunk their fair share of stolen wine from somebody somewhere. So I think it makes sense that the party would at least send in their thief, to go explore this place just a little bit. So we'll have them open up the doors stealthily. They walk in and they see everything in here. They spot all this going on, and they're going to go in without a torch, just sort of clinging, using the low light of the embers wherever that fire might be in the chamber. Maybe we can suggest that the fire would be here in the center, as well as all the broken bottles, etc. And we'll say that the dim fire here that's burning some old, moldy, moss-covered wet wood is causing a big, gray, thick fog into here. So even as the door opens up, everybody's eyes, they're wincing as they're trying to see through this terrible, terrible mist. And at least Zion can tell that this place looks pretty well clear enough. So giving the hail sign to the friends, the rest of the companions march into the room and now have a difficult decision on their hands. They see before them a stairwell going up, as well as a stairwell that goes down on the inverse side. I kind of forgot to mention that, as the stairs also go down under, or at least around the backside. What do the party want to do? Well, at this point, I think that we can also, just for the sake of the dice rolls being simple here, we'll roll for the random encounter now that the party are walking into this place, because that makes sense for that. But I think they'll pull out a torch now that they're officially starting this. So on 1, we'll have everything sort of resolve with that, and we'll consider the low light of this to be their light for right now, and we'll roll to see if we get a random encounter. So, confusing, I know, but let's see. On a 1, we'll get a random encounter. 6. Nothing. So with that, the party are going to roll over to the first one. We're going to light a torch. We'll say that our magic user, Barine, will hold the torch for now. So with our torch at the ready, the party are going to travel over here to this other side, and they'll probably just check the first door. So again, because we're not really going to suggest that every door is going to be trapped, we're going to roll a d4. On a 1, we'll see the door will have something special. So a 4, so no, nothing special. So the door might just be open. Okay, so the party are going to go ahead and open up these old wooden double doors, and we'll see what's on the other side. So when I originally drew this place up, I assumed that this might be like a guard post. Assuming that the proximity to the main entrance and to the throne room, it just made sense that this would be where guards would be and armory would be. But because this place has been shifted around, we're going to have to roll on our d6 to see what could possibly be in there now. So let's go ahead and roll. So first and foremost, we got a 3. A 3 says that this room is empty. So much fun. All right. So percentage chance of treasure is 15. So that's 73. No treasure. And as far as empty goes, I don't know, maybe we'll get something cool in this empty chamber. I'll just roll a couple of them. We'll see what we get. 52 and 27. So with a 52 and a 27, 27 gives us a dark area. Okay, seems like the whole place is probably dark anyway. Who am I joking? And an Iron Maiden. Cool. That's pretty metal. So the party are going to send in our friend Zion real quick as her eyes readjust to the darkness, and she can see that this room is especially dark. Amongst the refuse and rubble on the ground, there is, in fact, an Iron Maiden in the back here, where blood has long since darkened, stained, and sealed the floor. Tons of broken furniture, broken blades, shields, broken armor, chain everywhere. But unfortunately I guess fortunately for the party, there's that DM slip right there. There's nothing in here of note, nothing terrible to be found. So the party are going to spend a turn in here to rest while we've got the chance to, closing the door behind them and hoping nothing follows them in. Cool. So having rested for that extra bit there, we'll move it to 3, and the party now have the ability to move forward. So the party will continue on their merry trail. They're going to cross the room again, slowly and defensively, because we don't want to run into any trouble. And I think they'll probably just go to this next chamber right next door. I'm going to go ahead and move the timer one more, considering. And I'm actually going to get a little ticker going just for our torches. We've already utilized at least one. The party make it up to the door. Let's see if this door is trapped. I got a 1. Okay, cool. So again, a 1 and 4 and a d6 means that it's stuck. A 5 means that it's locked, and a 6 means that it's trapped. 6. Okay, a trap on the door. And I said before that this would normally imply that the door itself is locked. So, because the party haven't run into any traps up to this point, but they have been pretty cautious, I am going to try to, I might be cheating a little bit here when I say that they'll at least have Zion check the door. Well, I guess Zion's been checking every room anyway, so I guess that's not too much of a cheaty move, but let's roll to see if she can see this. I'm going to go ahead and roll real quick just to see on a 10% chance if she sees the trap in the first place. So on a 1, or we'll say it's a 1. 3. Okay, so no, she does not detect the trap on the door right away. So, that in mind, I'm thinking that the party will probably just attempt to open up the door and realize that 1, there's a trap, and 2, it's maybe going to go off. So we'll roll on a 2 in 6 chance the trap will go off. Oh boy. Okay, so let's see what this trap even is, because this could be pretty bad pretty quick. Why don't we... I'm going to check traps over here in the Old School Essentials book and see if we can get a cool one for this. Okay, so by cool, naturally, I meant that it's going to be very awful and very terrible. So I think that maybe we'll suggest that it's like one of these example room traps or a treasure trap. I'll roll a d6 and we'll see what I get for either of these 2 tables. A 1. So either a falling block or darts. Ooh. Okay, I think that the falling block is probably simpler. In that case, it probably makes more sense the goblins will do that one. Not that I want to dodge 1d6 of 1d4 damage. I think, that's definitely not it. So let's roll for a save versus petrification to see if our good old pal Zion is going to get smushed by a giant comedic anvil. So Zion will save against petrification on a 13 or higher. So let's go ahead and do our first d20 roll of the episode. Kind of weird when you can get this far into a game and not roll a single d20. Okay, all right, let's go 13 or higher. 15. Okay, cool. So as Zion attempts to very gently and gingerly open up the door, pulling it open by the individual hoop there, I imagine they're simple doors, big giant door hanger, pulls it open, and you can hear the sound of a thread pulling. And as it does so, opening up the door, a single big rock tied up in chain just comes whoosh, swinging for her head. Zion deftly ducks to the side, and Tamron gets it. No, I'm just kidding. So the block swings harmlessly back and forth, swinging with the chain, and we are okay on that regard. But I actually realized we never even saw what was in this room. So let's at least do that. Carts before horses, am I right? Or I guess swinging blocks before room contents. Anyway. Okay, so let's roll a d6, and we'll see if we've got anything fancy going on in this room. A 2. This room is also empty. Everybody's hanging out somewhere, and it sure isn't in here. So, okay, 15% chance of treasure. This room, I would hope, would have treasure after it's been trapped. Oh, that's so rude. 17 instead of the. Oh boy. Oh, it wouldn't have been much treasure anyway. So, okay, so there's no treasure in here. The party open up the door. The block swings and almost, and pardon my pun here, but almost knocks Zion's block off. The room itself is pretty large, again, assuming this is a giant-sized chamber. And since this used to be the throne room, I imagine the stone throne in this room is still in effect. It's still, it's a throne. It's thrown in here. As far as the rest of the random junk on the ground, let's quickly roll that up. So we'll do 3 more randoms. We got 26, 82, and 97. 26, 82, 97. So 26 gives us a dance parquet, which I have no idea what that is. Pretty sure it's just the rail on the wall. A 97. 97 gives us weapon and armor racks. Okay, cool. Maybe we'll say that there are actually a few simple weapons in here. And I think the last one was 82, which gives us a sink. Okay, so maybe just another bucket of water in here. A goblin sink is probably not anything too fancy, but a weapon rack, we'll say that there are, 2 simple weapons to get in here. So maybe a quarterstaff and a club. The party realize that these are not of super important use, but they'll still pick up the club and the quarterstaff anyway, just in case they ever have to chuck one or whatever, and they leave this terribly awful room behind. So timer moves to 5, and we checked the door, so that'll probably put us at 6. So that puts us just at time for another random encounter. The party have moved into this chamber here. 3, so no random encounter. Okay, we will set the timer to 1, and we have officially used our second torch. Frankly, I think the party have done pretty good so far for not dying. So now that they've done this, we'll spend our first turn in here just hanging out and resting. Okay, so that's all set there. The party decide they're going to move to probably just the next room in order. This pair of double doors appear at the top, leading into what used to be the mess hall. So I'm going to shift our map down just a little bit so we get a better view. And let's get cracking on that. Party are going to travel across the room. Since it's a pretty decent distance, I'm actually going to bump up the timer. Okay, and that puts us at 3 for our timer. And we're going to go ahead and roll to see what kind of room we've got ahead of us. On a d6, a 4. Okay, I'm pretty sure 4 is special. Yep, 4 is special. Special rooms in this book are a little wonky, so we're gonna I'm gonna put a little asterisk next to the special room chart because some of these are insane. So let's go ahead and roll a d100 and we'll see, or percentile for the cool kids. We will see what we've got. 53 gives us a medicine cabinet. Okay. Well, judging by the fact that this is the poison group, I'm not sure that that makes a whole lot of sense, but let's read this little entry and see what we've got. Medicine cabinet says the room serves as a consultation room for a doctor. He's usually a humanoid monster made of parts from different other humanoid monsters. Even if he has no actual license, he's done a pretty good job patching himself up. So again, I don't think this makes a whole bunch of sense for this campaign, let alone this dungeon, but I do like the idea that this may have worked as something of a hospitaler's chamber. I guess that's maybe a good term for that. So let's go ahead. I'm going to quickly draw that on here. Considering this room is special and it's the quote-unquote medicine cabinet, I think what makes sense for this place is we'll suggest that this was not an infirmary, but maybe something of like a chamber where I'm sure that the big large tables are all still in here. But I like thinking that maybe this place is where a lot of the sickness is sort of contained, held, and produced and whatnot. And this is just a big area where a lot of goblins might be sort of hanging out, and they might be, being sick, getting sick, eating the stuff that was in that paste jar before, and there are just unlabeled jars all over this place. So if the party did want to imbibe or devour any of the contents, I guess imbibing really becomes devouring when it becomes too viscous. But anyway, other important things. I think that it would make sense that this place might have some denizens. I don't want to force anything on here, but because the goblins are sick, I'm going to at least say that we'll roll a d6. We'll see on our d6 here for the oracle if there's goblins in this room. Okay. Okay, 3. So that is yes, but. Yes, right. Yes, but. So I'm going to say that's kind of the perfect answer for this. The party move into this place and smell the reek of death. They see a large set of double doors over here. They see all the tables covered in what can only be described as filth, I guess for shorter. There's a bunch of clay pots, glass vials, things bubbling over, and things squirming inside of stuff. They see goblins in here, but they're dead. And a lot of them look like they're riddled with boils, cysts, and they're oozing and they're groaning. And most of them are just like in the throes of being half alive, half dead. And I'm imagining that when the party see this, there's quite the disturbance to a lot of them. And I don't think anybody's going to even bother to try eating any of this stuff in this room because, oh my god. But this at least, confirms the grossness of the Bebet worship, Bebet being the goblin, god of sickness and chaos. So I'm sure the party at this point can see that there's something terrible going on in here. Now, I also, maybe we retcon this real quick, because I think we should also talk really quickly about who might be in charge of this. I know I hinted before at us having a goblin shaman in charge, but let's quickly talk about that. All right, I got my old school essentials book. So even though our group here says for goblins that they have usually a king and bodyguards, a 3 hit die king and 2d6 hit die, 2d6 2 hit die bodyguards alive in the goblin's lair. I think that it makes sense that because this guy is a worshiper of his god, there's a chance that he might actually have some spells to him. But I also think that the goblins probably worship in a how do I say this? They probably don't get a lot of respect from their gods. And for that reason, I don't think they're going to be much of a spellcaster so much as just a magic user who, sorry, not a magic user, a goblin warrior who is very passionate. This is like a paladin without a job. This is a cleric at level 1. So this is a very religiously passionate goblin who happens to be the big boss. So we'll say that they have 3 hit dice, and that averages out to 15. I'll just take the average for now. And we'll say that the goblin's name is probably, let's come up with that right now. Teru. How about Teru? I don't really have a good place to write that down, so I'll just put it right about here. Teru. And we'll say he has a title. He is Teru the Vile. Yeah, cool. So Teru the Vile is the goblin chief. But here's my question. Is Teru the Vile actually in here? I'm going to go ahead and roll again. Well, as much as I want to do the Oracle and say that there's a 50% chance, it's daytime, so there's probably much less of a chance. So let's roll a d6. We'll say on a 1 and 6, Teru is actually in here. A 2. Too close for comfort, to be honest, but Teru is not in here, nor are his bodyguards. They're probably somewhere else actually resting right now, which is far more ominous, but at least the party might have the chance to get the jump on them. Cool. Okay, that out of the way, the party now have the chance to go to either this room or into here, the old barracks, or here, the old kitchen. So I think because we're in here, we're probably going to go to the kitchen because that's simplest, and they're going to make their way over to here, and we're going to go ahead and roll on our d6 and see what could possibly be in the next room. So a d6, 6. Okay, now, if I were a gambling man, I would say, yeah, we've got our first monsters. Okay, so here's where it gets a little tricky with doing games like this. I really want to have a game where it's random and the dungeon, is kind of haphazard and all that. But I also want a dungeon that makes sense. Because this place is the home of the goblins and the ogres and whatever else evil might be lurking in here, I think it's only fair that there's a good chance that there's goblins and there's a good chance that there's ogres, but there's also a chance that it's something completely else. So I'm going to say on a 1 or a 2, it's a goblin. I'm going to say that on a 3, it's an ogre, and, well, not just one. And then on a 4, 5, 6, it'll be a random encounter on the in the OSE guide for the first floor. So, a 1. So we got goblins. Cool. So the party have walked into this room. They're disgusted. They're covering their noses, covering their mouths, and walking in all kinds of grossed out here. They walk over to this door and silently approach it. At this point, the party are going to put an ear toward the door and see if they can hear anything. We got a 6. We have a 1 in 6 chance of hearing noises when we're listening at the door. Because nobody's got any bonuses, the party don't hear anything in particular. So let's roll now to see if we hear anything at the door. Because Zion is a thief, we have the ability to roll for hear noises. As a first level thief, it is a 1 in 2 chance. So let's roll that real quick. 2! With a 2, she does hear a noise. And I think that it makes sense that we hear a noise, because this next room is probably filled with the sick, but not as, infirmed and disgusting, dying sick, but probably the sick that's, the first stages of carrying the illness of Bebet. So our party hear the noise through the door. I imagine Zion turns back to the rest of the party and just gives a look of alert, a look of alarm, and a look of disgust as everybody slowly listens in and can hear the sound of the writhing, the groaning, and the coughing. So with that in mind, let's roll real quick to see if there's anything special with the door. On a 2, nothing. Nothing's wrong with the door. Door can open fine. The party standing out here have been quiet enough, so I don't think that they're going to hear them from the outside coming in. The party know they have to go for the goblins, and I don't think they have any sort of qualms with killing the goblins at this point straight up. So I think the party are probably going to try and get the jump on them. Our goblins, we have a chance of running into 2d4 goblins here on the inside. Let's go ahead and roll that real quick. We've got 5 goblins in total. Okay, cool. I suppose at this point the party are going to have full free range to get the jump on them here in the kitchen, so I'm just going to draw that out real quickly. I think it makes sense that we draw some at least giant-sized kitchen furniture here. Yeah, furniture, appliances, whatever. We'll say that there's a giant pile of refuse in here. We'll say that these are some tables. Maybe there's a large space here in the center where they've had like a burning fire for a cooking pot, but because they're goblins and they haven't done a great job taking care of themselves, they're probably eating raw food more than anything. Hence a lot of the sickness. Salmonella is probably a thing goblins deal with. Anyway, goblin salmonella aside, let's see what's going on here for our combat. So I just returned from my stash of minis, and I've got for you a few of my prized miniatures. I have quite a collection of miniatures, not the most robust. I know some people go a little above and beyond with their miniature collections, but in my mind, I've just been collecting them since I was a kid, and I'm going to start off with 2 goblins. 2 of them, they come from the 3.5 starter box. These are probably my absolute favorite goblins. Just pretty standard fare, but they just look menacing and stupid, and I dig them. So we'll put these guys on out here. I almost feel like I should be reading this off like it's a title fight. In the sick corner we have... Well, I guess they just get worse over. I guess each of the goblins are going to get worse. So next is the 5th edition goblin, a pretty buff looking goblin, but whatever. I don't know. Goblins with 6-packs and pecs just kind of freak me out in a philosophical sense. Getting even farther from baseline, we have a Pathfinder goblin, which, yeah, I mean, you tell me who's sick. And last but not least, because I don't have all of my goblin minis down with me in the basement, we have a Bullywug. Honestly, Bullywugs, some of my favorites in the entire world of D&D. They're some of my favorite monsters. So he's going to be here. How sick is the goblin? The goblin is so sick, he has become a frogman. Cool. Now that we've reached this stage here, I think it's time we get jumping into this combat. Because the party are going to have the surprise on them, I think we're going to just go ahead and kick in the door, and having heard that there's about 5 of them in there, the party are probably going to just jump straight into this combat and get the jump on them. Charging in and attacking, kicking the door open, shooting, and, well, I guess Marine is just going to hold the torch. So let's go ahead and just jump right in on this and we'll get some attacks in. So first and foremost, we're going to have the breakdown of moves here, the phases of combat. So starting off first will be movement, and I've always lumped movement and attacking in. I don't know if that's an AD&D rule or whatever, but that's how I've always run it, and I feel comfortable doing that. So first, Tamron is going to run straight in with his longsword, and he's going to go for our little Pathfinder goblin, traveling up the full 20 feet to do so. I'm not going to do 3.5 rules where diagonals do a thing. That's scary. So, and our friend over here, Fennel, is going to run in and attack the Bullywug one using her big old mace. So let's go ahead and do that. So in this wonderful... Oh, for Pete's sake. Okay, so Tamron runs in, whiffs terribly, swings, and misses the goblin. Okay, Fennel, on the other hand, swings in and cracks one in the cranium. Because goblins have an armor class of 6 using descending, we only need to roll our 13 or higher with a THAC0 of 19. And good old Fennel, having a whopping strength of 13, means we get our +1 on attack rolls with the mace. So yeah, we hit with our 16 on their 13 necessary. So now we get to roll for damage. We get a d6 +1, so that in mind. 5 + 1 is a 6. So our goblins, which I'm pretty sure only have 3 or 4 hit points. I should really keep this book open. And, you know, I know some people like to roll hit dice for individual monsters, but on the fly here, 3 hit points. Oh, this is going to be good. So the party, go ahead and jump in here on these sick goblins, and Fennel blesses one with a bashing over the head, screaming out for I'll tell you what the frick is the name is more like it. You know, this god's name will never make a lot of sense to me, but yes, Fretizzer. So, for Fretizzer, with a thunderous whoop, bang, smacks him over the head, and our little bullywug goblin is dead. Cool. Now, we'll move into the next part of the round, which will be ranged attacks. And that means that our friend here, Zion, has a chance to shoot one in the rear here, firing in using the low light embers of the cooking area here to be able to see in the back. We don't get any bonuses for shooting within any sort of special range, because unfortunately this goblin over here that he's firing on, she is firing on, is 40 away. Because we actually have, I was completely incorrect. We have 50 as the lowest range increment, and in Old School Essentials, that means we get a +1. This is considered short range, so we get a +2 overall in the roll. Again, we need a 13 or higher. We got an 18. Whoo! All right, I love it. Cool, good. You know, compared to the last goblin fight, this is already leaps and bounds better. So for damage, we got a 4, no bonuses, because this is an addition that makes a little bit more sense. No, I'm just kidding. So this goblin is shot square through the face, drops dead with a gurgle and a screech. The rest of the goblins over here are now alerted to this. Marine stands stoically with torch in hand, doing little more than standing stoically with torch in hand. Okay, now we're going to move into the initiative. So because we want to be good little honest DMs and DMettes, the party, I'm sorry I ever said that. The party are going to continue their onslaught. Tamron's going to continue attacking. Fennel is going to attempt to move and attack. Zion is going to continue shooting in, and Barine is going to continue to hold with the torch. The goblins are obviously going to fight for their lives, or, you know, let's talk about morale. So one of the best parts of old school gaming, at least in my opinion, compared to other editions, is morale. So morale, loyalty also, but morale is pretty sweet. So in these games where we have so many enemies on one side, monsters will check morale when first death on their side or half of their side is killed or incapacitated. So in that case, we are actually going to start off with a morale roll for them on their turn. Otherwise, they're going to probably just behave as goblins do and attack. So let's go ahead and roll for initiative. In that case, I'll roll these 2 dice. Rainbow for the party, and the enemy will have this. I say this because colorblindness is a heck of a drug. With that, the party got a 2, and the enemy, I believe, got a 3. I know they beat them, so the party lost the initiative. But there's a good chance with morale, the party will actually be kind of done with this fight. Let's go ahead and roll for morale for the goblins. We're going to roll 2d6, and we will see what we get on the roll. So their morale is a 7, so if we get above a 7, they are going to run for the hills. Or at least run for, Bebed, or something. So a 4, these goblins are going to stick it out. So they've seen death, they ain't afraid of no silly little Tamron. So we're going to go ahead and have them attack. They seize the initiative, so all 3 goblins are going to run right up to Tamron and just start swinging for him, using little daggers, broken glass, sharp bits of metal, and they're just going to try their damnedest. So first attack is a 15. So because the goblin is a up to 1 because it'd be 1 minus 1. They need to roll versus Tamrin's armor class, which is a 4, since he's got the dex bonus, scale mail, and a shield. His armor class is a 4. They need to roll a 15 or higher to hit, and we got 15. So, unfortunately, our sick little goblin landed a hit. When I say sick little goblin, I do think of him doing like a cool little kickflip or something. Sorry, it helps me swallow this a little bit more to know that at least he did a kickflip before killing him. So 1 point of damage from the goblin to Tamrin. Okay, I can live with that. I don't know if Tamrin can live with that, but we'll see. The second goblin attacks, gets a 17, that is also a hit. And that is 3 points of damage, so 4 total, and the last one swings in and a 10, so it misses. Okay, 4 points of total damage on Tamrin. Tamrin, overall, has 8 hit points to his name, so he goes down to 4 with a couple of very lucky stabs from these goblins. Cool. Well, again, I say cool. I don't mean it. It's not cool. It's truly sad. That's it for the goblins, and the party will now continue their move. So Fennel, being the first for the movement, will charge up and swing on this goblin, hitting on a 13 or higher with a +1. That's a failure, so 7 is a miss. Tamrin is going to be in melee, but melee goes in the last of the round, so technically our friend Zion gets to shoot first. Now, I know everybody and their mama has a rule for shooting into combat, and frankly, I don't really like making a big deal about it. Because there's an expected 10 feet between everybody and everybody's in here, I suggest this. The enemy has just as little of a chance of hitting their own allies in combat like that. Maybe on a fumble, we'll say that they have a chance to hit their party member, but otherwise, I'm not going to be worried about it. We'll say that these people have a decent enough shot to hit. So we won't have any risk of hitting either Fennel or Tamrin. 13 is a hit, so with our d6 damage, shooting on the goblin that they shot on before, we got a 5, so another goblin dies. And now, Tamrin, at the end of the round, is going to attack with his sword. So with a +1 on the attack, a 12, 13 with the +1 means that we do strike, we do land a hit. Now, because we're using a long sword with Tamrin, he's going to actually have a pretty good chance of killing this goblin, who, again, has 3 hit points. So we got a 2. Because of our strength, we have a 2 + 1. So 3 is enough to kill it. So this goblin is dead. We have 1 goblin left. So for the last, or seemingly last round, let's roll for initiative. The party are going to attempt to kill him, same way we've been doing all along. Okay. So the party got a 2 again, and the goblin only got a 1. So the party will go first. So I think the party are just going to straight up attempt to kill this guy. Even though it might behoove them to be able to get information, I don't think that our lawful good characters would be comfortable, or at least lawful good character would be comfortable with torture in a way that's gratuitous. So I don't know. I think it might make sense that the party try to catch this last goblin and restrain him. So maybe what we'll say is that we'll attempt a non-lethal strike. I'm pretty sure, here I am just saying pretty sure out loud as if I've got any grounds to say that, there should be a chance that our party are able to attack non-lethally. Yeah, so subduing intelligent foes says that at 0 HP they surrender. So I'm guessing that what we can argue from that is as long as we bring them to 0, we can argue that we subdued him instead. So we'll use the flat of our blade or punk him on the head in a way that'll just knock him out. So in that case, Fennel has to move to get into base combat, so she will, base contact, yeah, base combat. And 18 is a hit. So again, attempting to bonk him on the head and knock him out in hopes of getting maybe some information. Fennel hits him over the head for 2 + 1, 6 points of damage, and the goblin is conked, unconscious. Okay. Excellent. Combat's over. So let's go ahead and pull this back together now. The party all file into this disgusting room here, and they close the door behind them. They're going to move into the 6th little section here of time, and we'll roll for a random encounter. 2 on the d6 means no random encounter. We will go ahead and spring up a new torch, and the party, oh, you guys can't see that, it's the 3rd torch. So now that we've got our 3rd torch lit, the party are in here, after combat, we have to take a turn to rest, and I'll count that as the same rest we have to do each and every hour. So the party rest, regroup their arrows, get their stuff together, and recover from the fight. Now that we have our one surviving goblin, the party surround them, and let's double check our languages just to see if anybody has a chance to actually talk to this bozo. So, unfortunately, checking our languages, Fennel, for some reason, took an elective course in Cleric College and took Draconic. And the Barine, the magic user, also speaks Draconic. In my campaign settings, I usually argue that magic is written in the language of dragons, so most magic users just pick Draconic for that reason, and not just so they can totally have a cool conversation with a dragon someday. So unfortunately, because nobody can speak Goblin, I'm going to say this random podunk dum-dum goblin has a 1 in 6 chance of speaking the common tongue fluently. We'll say that they have a 2 or 3 on the d6 of speaking bits and pieces, and a 4 through 6, they have no clue. 6, no clue. So this little goblin wakes up, groggy, his eyes are yellow, crusty, and running with a gross pus. He's got boils and cysts all over him. He looks terrible. When he comes to finally, he's barely alive at all, and the party surround him. I imagine Tamrin stands there at the ready with sword to the goblin's throat and stands over him with a certain look of dominance, and standing there threateningly says, "Tell us what you know." And as the goblin looks back to him with a meager look on his face, panicked and looking fearful like it might try to run any way it can, the party tighten their circle around him and stand around him. Tamrin then points the sword towards his neck again, poking against the goblin's throat, and as you can see the indent forming from the blade pushing on its throat, the goblin squishes against the wall, and as it sits there against the wall with its back, its eyes darting left and right looking for any form of an exit, any way out of this, the party again lean in as Tamrin says, "Tell us what you know, or I will kill you." And as the goblin has no idea what's going on, the goblin just sort of barks out in the goblin tongue and says, "Briark, Briark." The party realize that he's not calling for help so much as he's just trying to say something in goblin. They all look back and forth at one another and realize the goblin has no idea what they're saying. To test this hypothesis, Barine chimes in and says, in a very gentle, good cop kind of voice, and says, "Do you understand what we are saying?" And as the goblin looks over to Barine with a look of confusion, just sort of swallows hard, the throat lump going over the blade's point, and says, "Wow, wow, wow." And at this point, I don't know why they sound like evil cats, but anyway, the goblin just confirms with the party that it has no capacity to explain anything. The party realize that this is a hopeful endeavor, and realize that the goblin will probably double-cross them at any point that it can, so unfortunately, Tamrin, looking away, says, "May you find peace on the other side." And our cleric, Fennel, sort of nods her head and just bludgeons him over the head, quickly ending the goblin's misery. With that little bit of exposition out of the way, the next thing we should consider for ourselves that the party are standing in here recuperating is that within a monster room, there's a 50% chance of treasure. And that's always good. So let's roll our 50% chance. 20. So yes, there's treasure. Ooh, boy, am I happy to hear that. Let's put this book down, and now let's talk about treasure. So, as the entry within the book suggests that goblins have treasure type C for their hoard, I don't believe that this random goblin chamber here would have the hoard one, obviously, or a portion of the hoard. I think that it makes sense that the treasure downstairs would likely be the place where the hoard is actually hiding out. And so, for that reason, I think that we'll roll randomly for treasure based on this being a level 1 of the dungeon. So, using the Old School Essentials Guide, there's this nice little table here that says for the level of the dungeon, there is a certain amount of treasure to be found. So let's go ahead and roll that real quick. So we have the potential for 1d6 times 100 silver pieces. We got 3. So 300 silver. I'll just jot this down super quick. Okay, and then we have a 50% chance of 1d6 times 10 gold. All right, so let's roll again our percentiles. Ooh, 14. Wow. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. I can live with that. You know, you can tell we're low level when we're that excited about 1d6 times 10 gold pieces. So let's go ahead and roll that. 1d6, 10. Yep. Okay. I take back my excitement. This is no longer exciting, and I am sad. So 10 gold pieces within here. Here, I'll even shift this down so you guys can see where I'm writing. So now here's where we come to the fun stuff. So here we have a 5% chance of 1d6 gems. So I'm going to roll a d20. If I get a crit, we got gems. 90. Oh, that's so rude. Close, but no cigar. Okay. All right, I can live with that. 2% chance of 1d6 pieces of jewelry and 2% chance of one magic item. So let's roll those two real quick. So again, we'll say that a 1 or a 2 on the percentiles will give us the first jewelry. So no, 63. And then chance of magic items, 33. So no. Are you surprised? I'm kind of mad about the gems. You know what? Watch. Yeah, no, okay. You know, sometimes I feel like the dice are just messing with me. Okay, so let's figure out what's going on now. Our party have just retrieved some treasure, finding a little bit of treasure here. I think overall value, this is about 40 gold pieces worth of stuff altogether. So, the party have an opportunity to go back. Tamond is injured, which sucks. But is he injured enough to go home? I think the party might actually try and push their luck and keep moving in this dungeon. So let's go ahead and let's push that luck. So in that case, here I'm going to clean up the board just a little bit. The party now are going to proceed from their chamber here, the old kitchen, and they're going to keep looking around on this first floor. We're at least going to go to the barracks and see what we can find. So now the party are going to travel into the kitchen here, and then they'll travel over to the barracks door. They don't know it's the barracks. We know it's the barracks, but okay. So our counter now changes to 1 as the party enter this humongous kitchen hall, and then we'll go ahead and bump it to 2 because this is such a gigantic space as they go over here to the doors. So again, Zion is going to attempt to check at the door, but first let's see what this room actually has going on. So on a d6, a 2 means the room will be empty. Oh boy, how boring is this place? How many places, these goblins have really left this place empty. Okay, so because it's empty, 15% chance of running into treasure. And nope, so there's no treasure. So the party listen at the door, they hear nothing. The party check for traps. Let's see if the door's bugged. 2, so no, it's not. So they see no locks, no traps, it doesn't seem to be stuck. So the party push open the door, and inside they see that this chamber is pretty well gigantic. Again, no pun intended. And there appears to be a staircase leading upstairs in here. The staircase over here in the corner. As well, the room is filled as per usual with tons of refuse. But we'll say that there's, 3 random things inside of here. So let's see what we get real quick. So first percentile, we get 75. So there is a rotting library. Interesting. So at some point somebody must have, or maybe the ogres, I don't know, who would have a library amongst the ogres? Maybe they stole books from somebody, and the books have just been sitting here and been used as, well, I don't want to talk about what they're being used as. And now we got a 79, which is a shelf. How exciting. And 58. 58, we got an oil-covered floor. Okay, so it seems like maybe at some point somebody spilled an oil flask. The room itself is, maybe the books are all saturated in the oil, bookshelves are knocked over, that were stolen from somebody at some point, and there's all these giant bunk beds that have all been pretty well rat-eaten and moth-ruined and every other kind of vermin ruined. And we can see that there is a stairwell out of here. So the party spent the turn to check the door. Sorry, 3. And the party then take the turn to enter the chamber and hang out for just a second. So traversing the chamber, they see that there is a staircase leading up. Now, do I want to continue upstairs? Yeah, let's push upstairs. Let's go for it. I'm going to go ahead and erase this map, and I'll come back with what the upstairs will look like. So keep this all in your mind, because I'm not drawing it again. Woo! All right. Okay. So now that we're moving up to this next floor, let's roll a d6 and see what's possibly upstairs. A 1. A trap. Okay. A room trap, nonetheless. Oh, I put the staircase in the wrong spot. That was the trap. There's a moving stair. Okay, I'm sorry. So the giant-sized stairwell's right there, and then there's a door to get out of this place right there. Oops, looks like a triangle. Okay, room trap time. Let's go ahead and see what we can get for a room trap. So an example room trap, according to our wonderful OSC guide, it could be any of these 6. So let's just roll for it on there. See what we get. A 4. So a pit opens up beneath the character's feet, inflicting falling damage on all who fall in. Interesting. So maybe we'll suggest that there is a fake, like a tarp or something, over here in front of this pair of doors, and when the party walk in, again, this used to be something of an elite chamber where some guards used to stay. So there's obviously the broken bunk beds and all that fun stuff, but let's say that there's a chance that they fall through right here and fall to the floor below them. So again, the party moving in their typical order, with Tamron in the front and the rest of the party following behind. We'll say there's a 1 in 6 chance of noticing the room trap. Nope. Okay, and then there's a 2 in 6 chance of them triggering this trap. I really hope Tamron doesn't, because there's a good chance he could fall to his death. 6. Okay, at least one person is successfully not triggering it. 2, Marine is fine. 5, Zion is fine. And last would be Fennel. Fennel gets a 3, and that's fine. So the whole party are fine over this trap. That's great. Excellent. I think that as the party are stepping right here into this doorway, we'll see if it's trapped. Nope, no traps, no nothing. And the next area is the big giant section of hallways. So let's roll real quick to see what our hallways are going to look like. On a 6, a 4 implies that it's special. Okay, if we can't get a good special, I'm going to actually re-roll that. So let's see what we get for a special. And again, if we get another Goblin Doctor, I don't know how much I can force something there. All right, so with a 9, we get a boss monster. Uh-oh. Okay. So this room is the lair of a more powerful variant of a common kind of monster living in the dungeon. It is bigger and stronger. Oh my goodness. +3 hit die, +2 AC, and +2 morale than the usual monsters encountered. It is also encountered by 2 lieutenants, which are only a bit stronger. For treasure generation, add 10% to each category if that isn't nil. Okay, well, we don't really have that part. Interesting. Okay, that's terrifying. Let's go ahead and roll our d6. Same numbers we had before. I'll even bump this up now that the party moved through that room. And we'll say that there is a 1 and 2 of it being a goblin, 3 of it being an ogre, and a 4, 5, 6 of it being some other randomly encountered critter. A 3. Oh no. So not only is this an ogre, but this is a gigantic ogre. And not only is it a gigantic ogre, but there are 2 lieutenant ogres with it. I'm pretty okay with that being the outcome here. So that in mind, let's go ahead and draw out at least a little bit of what's going on for our layout here. All right. So now that I've drawn out a bit of this map here, which obviously you won't be able to see all of it right now because it's gigantic, but the party have officially stumbled upon the ogre lieutenant here. That being the case, I know we have Toru, the Vile, but maybe this ogre lieutenant will have a name too. Perhaps our ogre lieutenant here, his name will be Dar. That seems kind of rude, but Dar. Yeah, there you go, an ogre named Dar. Okay, so our ogre named Dar is going to be in here just sort of maybe perusing the place, sleeping, something. And let's go ahead and roll to see if there's any sense of surprise in this place. But before we do that, I think it seems fair that Zion will at least be the one ahead sneaking. So let's go ahead and, yeah, let's suggest that Zion sneaks out first. And we'll roll for surprise. And we'll see, I guess, we'll say Zion will move silently now, just to see if we can get across here without being noticed by the ogre. I don't know that the party know that there's an ogre, but she's going to move silently either way. So because this place is probably dead quiet, considering they're all probably asleep, I think it'll be just a fair roll. A first level thief has a 20% chance of success on moving silently. So let's quickly do that. 61. So unfortunately, she's not entirely silent, which, good. Why would a thief do that? And now we'll roll for surprise. Again, rainbow for the party, and this purple color for the ogres. Okay, so the party are not surprised, since they're only surprised on a 1, and the enemy will be surprised on a 1 through 3 because the ranger's in the group. So moving silently ahead, the ranger is able to skulk. Well, you know what? We'll be honest. We'll be fair. It would be a 1 and 2 because the rogue thief is by herself. So she sneaks around the corner, and she can see that Dar is there. It definitely took a lot in me to say that to not say Dar is there, but anyway. All right, just like last time, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you what I could find for my minis right now. So I've got an old hill giant, which we're going to have to say is the ogre, Dar. He's gigantic, so I feel like it makes sense to be the big, humongous giant there. We've got one big-ass orc, and we have a gnoll. I know that these might not be super to size, but I figured the other ones were just so gigantic that I think it didn't make much sense. So I'm guessing here the party of, well, evildoers are probably standing all the way on the far side over here. And they're probably munching on something and just sort of groveling to themselves about how much they hate being here with the goblins. So, considering that our friend here is beginning a a skulking about around the corner, she has officially moved silently here, or she failed in that, but they don't notice her, but she notices them. So I think she's going to attempt to hide in shadows. Now, because the the ogres, clearly, have the ability to see in the dark, I think she's not going to have any bonuses on this, and her hide in shadows as a level 1 rogue, since she's not seen in the surprise round, she's going to be just peering her head around the corner. I'm going to boost her already existing 10% to 30%, because, you know, I figure that makes sense. So 64. She is not capable of sneaking and being unseen if she decides to hang out here and just do some recon. So at least for the first, 10 seconds or so, she can tell that they can't see her. Now, they're awake, groveling, and not happy, so she's going to just peer around the corner and try to get a good look at what's going on. And because she doesn't do anything, I think she's going to go ahead and attempt to go back. The ogres, however, will see her after sitting there, realizing they're not speaking the common tongue, and they will go ahead and we'll roll for a reaction. Oh my god. Okay. Let's consult a character sheet about this, because this could really change how this dungeon is going to play out. These evil, terrible ogres just rolled a 12 on the reaction. Now, because we have a charisma of 13, our reactions, we get a +1 to reactions. So not only would we normally get a penalty for having a ogres probably hating everybody entering, especially entering their home, so they'd probably be starting off with a -2. Because we got a +1 on top of that, that at least puts us at 11. So as far as reactions go for messing with monsters in a dungeon, an 11 would give us indifferent or uninterested. Now, as much as I think that this makes more sense numerically, I think that 12 in the beginning, friendly and helpful, I think that comes with a little bit of a caveat. And the fact that we got a 12 on that, I think we should honor it. Our friend Zion stands here, her eyes adjusting to the darkness, and as she can hear the distance, the deep bellowing voices of groveling ogres just talking amongst themselves. She stands there and attempts to listen in, but realizes that she doesn't actually understand what it is that they're saying. She stands there for a little bit longer just to try to make out just the general sense of, are they angry? Are they fighting? What's going on? And when she turns to go away, they notice her for just a glance. And at one point, our friend Dar stands up and starts to march after her. And as the other ogres, confused as to what's going on, follow suit, following afterwards, Zion attempts to continue sneaking back over to the door. As she makes it to the door, our gigantic ogre attempts to squeeze through here and climb closer and closer and holds up his hands, trying to at least hush her a little bit. And with a very stupidly charismatic look on his face, Dar holds up his hand and puts his hand to his chest and says, "Me friend, you." And as Zion, and I imagine the rest of the party standing at the door with weapons at the ready, look confused, as if their eyes might fall out of their head, look back and forth at one another, not sure if they can trust an ogre in this situation, let alone the lieutenant of the ogres. Oh my. So let's go back to the big camera. All right, so I'll be honest with you. I did not see that coming. And I know you could make the argument that maybe I'm flubbing the dice just a little bit, but when we created this, we knew from our dice rolls that these ogres don't want to work with the goblins, and the first chance they get to turn on them, they will do so. And I imagine that our party skulking into their lair like this might just be the olive branch, something to end the goblin tyranny. Now, does this mean that Dar, the ogre lieutenant, I don't know that ogres have lieutenants. Does this mean that Dar is willing to work nicely with them, let alone work honestly with them? That's, I think, for next time, but I think we all know the answer to that anyway. But in any case, the party definitely seem like they've at least survived this certain death that they might have naturally encountered with these ogres. But it looks like for the next episode, we've got some interesting discussions to have with some ogres. And I'll tell you, I did not see this coming. So I guess we'll figure out what happens next time. Thank you again for watching. I appreciate all the comments that I get down below, so please comment if I did anything wrong, if you think anything was cool, if you have any suggestions to things. I'll be getting a lot of really cool input from everybody who's been watching, so please keep going. I respond to every comment that I can, and I do this for you guys. I do it for me, but I do it a lot for you, so please tell me what you think. But until next time, thank you for watching.